Welcome to the Over the Hump podcast. Your gateway to the world of the iconic Brahman breed of cattle. At BRC Ranch, our passion for Brahman cattle runs deep. Join us as we delve into the heart of this extraordinary breed, unveiling its rich history, exploring industry trends, and sharing captivating stories that define the American Brahman. BRC Ranch stands as the pinnacle of Brahman excellence in America, boasting a decade-long legacy of champions and housing the finest Brahman bulls worldwide. It's not just about cattle, it's about a legacy that reverberates across ranches
Hey
and
everyone,
hearts.
welcome to the next
Brought to you
episode
by
of Over the
BRC
Hump
Ranch,
podcast.
where the
Today I'm your
Brahman
host,
legacy
Rachel Cutrer,
thrives,
and I
and
have
stories
with
are
us
woven
the queen
into the
of the
very
Brahman
fabric
world,
of
Victoria
ranching.
Lambert,
This
owner
is
of the
Over
Brahman
Hump.
Journal. So
And
welcome,
now your
Vicky.
hosts,
Hey, thanks for
Brendan
having me.
Cutrer,
I'm really excited
Rachel Cutrer,
that we're having
and
this little
Keaton
chat. This is so
Dodd.
cool.
I know. I think people are going to love this because they're used to hearing you talk about everybody else's programs and everybody else's, cattle and business. And I think people are going to love hearing about your business and you. So usually if we would just start off, I know everyone knows you, but I would love to hear just kind of a little history of the Brahman Journal, how long it's been around and how you got into it, and just fill us in on all of that.
Well, I think of myself as a person that is just taking care of the Brahman Journal because to me, it is a great gift to the entire Brahman world. And so I'm the third owner of the Brahman Journal, but I don't really own it. It sort of owns me. But I'm a caretaker of this great history of the Brahmin breed. And when I first bought the magazine in 2002, I don't think I quite realized, but I have realized through the years. So 1971, I am absolutely looking at the very first edition of the Brahman Journal, which was in September of 1971. As you know, Lionel Chambers is the one that started the magazine. And there have been a couple of other magazines I think you're probably very aware of. There was like the Brahman Feeder, and then there was the International Brahman Review that was out of Florida. So there have been a couple of different publications, but this one was recognized as the official publication of Brahman cattle and also was recognized from its very first edition as the American Brahman Breeders Association official breed publication. So I think that's kind of a cool history that some people don't realize that it started that long ago.
Yeah, definitely. That was, 54 years ago. I have some of the older ones of the Brahman feeder, which I think that was around like the 1940s.
Yes, I have a stack of those. I have some books of those too. So
That
that's really cool.
didn't
Yeah.
really seem to last that long. I don't know how long its tenure ran, but maybe less than 10 years. So 54 years, the Brahman Journal has endured a lot.
Yeah, it definitely has done a lot and it has endured a lot. So Lionel Chambers had it and he had it for about 10 years. And he actually hired Joe Brockett to work with him. I think maybe all along, and I don't know that history that closely, but I think probably all along the thought was that he would be a good person to be the next caretaker of the Brahman Journal. And so Joe Brockett's, I think, first edition was in January of 1980. And so again, Lionel took it from 71 to December of 79, and then Joe started it. And he was educated as a journalist. And so he was very passionate about the journalism side of it. And of course, when he was there, his wife was very important in part of that. It was Karen, Lionel's wife at that time, and Lionel that took care of it. And then it was Marie and Joe. And now it's just me. I know some people think Carl Lambert owns the magazine, but he really doesn't have anything to do with the magazine. He's busy doing all the things that he does.
Well, I always take notes like during these and just kind of like get ideas of things to ask. And when you said, that Joe Brockett had a degree in journalism and reporting are two words that I just wrote down because that's so clearly so important to you. And I think in today's society, a lot of people, anybody can start a Facebook page, anybody can, call themselves a marketer or whatever, but the true science and professional field of journalism with, a focus on accuracy, of fact checking. That's kind of a lost art. I mean, people can make up anything they want these days and put it on Facebook, but I know that that is important to you. And I know it was important to Joe Brockett too, because when you read it, and well, and especially Lionel, when you look back through those old magazines, like the writing is so good, it's solid, things are accuracy and facts are so important. And I know that you feel so strongly about that too.
Oh, that is like one of the most important things to me. And that's why I work so hard at it, because I really think that when people look at the Brahman Journal, they should know that we have fact checked, we've made sure we're giving accurate information, and that we have worked really hard at it. And if we do find out, oh, we made a mistake, this animal wasn't register of renown, or this animal didn't win that, or didn't win it at that time, or we made a mistake and have the wrong photo, we definitely go back and we print that and make sure everybody knows that, we had made a mistake, because it does happen. We're all human, so it does happen. But we work really, really hard to bring accurate information that people can utilize to then go talk about their program. So that's something that has been kind of important to me. So I bought the magazine in 2002. At that point in time, Joe was ready to kind of retire from it. And it was really, I mean, Rachel, the world back then was so different. And I think anybody can come to my office at any time, but it's so cool because I have file cabinets full of hard copy photos from so many different breeders, and they're all in file folders. And it's like, Johnny Jeffcoat's folders, Dinah Wiles photo folder with full of photos, Clem Ranch, his father from back in the 70s. I have all of those photos that were used in the magazine, because you used to have to send in your hard copy. And then I have all the events. I have events from the 1980s on hard copy until Joe sold the magazine. I have those all American photos that, yeah, I can go back and I can find people when they were little bitty. So it's very cool.
I have this, you're going to laugh at this, but I have like this core memory. You said you bought it in 2002. So I would have been in my first year in grad school at Michigan State. And I remember getting the call from you and Carl that y'all had bought the magazine, because I was doing ads at that time. And I was, 22-year-old girl. I was sitting in my basement in Michigan on the basement stairs down there because it was so cold, and y'all called and you were like, we're the new owners, and we're going to be upgrading and doing things better, and like better technology and things like that. And that was what, 23 years ago. But I mean, I still remember that call.
At that point in time, I think you were sending in ads for the magazine, but I also remember you had a website business that you had just started,
Yes, I had just started the website business,
and it was called.
Two Girls Web Design. I was sending our ads in on a CD,
Yes, you were.
burning the ads on a CD because they were too big to email, and then overnighting them from Michigan to y'all by the deadline.
By the deadline. And I remember that first one, it was like you sent it priority mail. And unfortunately, the mail failed us. So I got it a little late and I was freaking out. It was my very first edition. My very first edition of the magazine was November of 2002. And I can tell you that Joe Brockett was very kind, and he's like, you need to come up and you need to learn how to do this and everything. And I went and I met the printer and I asked Joe, okay, so you send your proofs email? No, we don't email anything. We fax everything. And I'm thinking, how do you fax a color ad to somebody to look at? And I thought, I mean, like, email. And he's like, well, we don't have very good internet here, because he was in Eddy, Texas, and I was just like, you're faxing people there. And can you imagine nowadays to fax anyone anything, much less a color ad, over like a telephone line, like a dial-up. So yeah, it was crazy. And back then, you had to like put all the magazine together, and I had to burn them onto discs and drive them to the printer, and then they would put them back together again. And so I found some glitches of like there's lots of versions of this font. And so when they put it in, it wasn't lining up like it should have. So let's change to a font that there's only one version of. And, I learned a lot along the way.
Oh, yeah. So would were you tell us about how you got in. I mean, you're one of the most knowledgeable marketers, graphic designers, video, technology is your thing, but how did you learn this? How did you learn this field?
Well, I looked at people like you because you had that website. And when I bought the magazine, there was no website. And I thought, okay, I've got to have to learn how to do this. And so a lot of book learning, a lot of looking and at what other people were doing. And then, of course, I think that we've done a lot of things that are kind of cutting edge throughout the years. But back then, there was no website. It wasn't translated into multiple languages. So I had bought the magazine, pretty much kind of closed on the magazine deal in September. And so, of course, the November edition meant that I had to take over the magazine in October. So, kind of in a 45-day period of time, I sort of learned how to do all this, what the programs were, how to set up a website, got a website up and running, and started a magazine. And I can say I cried a lot of evenings thinking, what have I done? But I would not change anything for this wonderful kind of journey I've been taking with the Brahmin family and the Brahmin world. So you grew up in it. You are a Brahmin from the moment you were born. You grew up in, I have great respect for what you do in the Brahmin world and how you do it. I kind of came in as a older person, and so I'm kind of the newbie, even though I've been doing it for like 20 some odd, 30, 23, 24 years. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah, it has definitely been a learning experience. So
Yeah, I think you have to be like that. I mean, I'm self-taught web designer, self-taught graphic designer. I mean, I have a master's in communications, but even when you go to school, they don't teach you how to actually do an ad or how to actually set up a live stream. You just got to figure it out.
right, exactly, exactly. And so, like, I actually had gone to school. I was going to go to Harvard Law, and my husband said, I'll never see you. I love to travel internationally. You should buy this magazine. You're really good with computers. And I looked at him and I'm like, are you nuts? It's like a magazine, it's like a real thing. I mean, it goes around the world. And he's like, oh, but you'll be great at it. I got distracted and I ended up buying this magazine, which I absolutely love, and turned it into kind of a whole like marketing type thing. And again, you are 100% correct. You learn by doing, and you learn by watching other people do it well, and also learn what you don't like. I've done a lot of things going, I like that website. This part I don't like about it, so I'm not going to utilize that, but I really think this part's cool. And so you just kind of keep evolving into it. So,
Yeah. Well, I want to approach a topic that might be a little sensitive, but we also know that Brahmin people love to hear the tea. And
oh, they certainly do, don't they? Yeah, absolutely. And I know where you're going, and I cannot wait. This is going to be fun because I love you. I love you as a person, as a friend, as a competitor in past, and now as somebody that I really thoroughly enjoy working with. So this is going to be fun.
so, for our new listeners, you may not even be aware of this situation, but I would say maybe you and I would consider you one of my very best friends right now, Vicky. But 15 years ago, I would say we were maybe each other's number one enemy.
Probably so. I know we do. I know I wasn't super fond of you when I got that. I right before Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. I remember I'm in my office. I am packing everything. I'm doing all this stuff. And I look on the floor and there's this thing that's been pushed through my door and it's a big old magazine. And I look at it and lo and behold, what was it?
So yes, it was 2010. I was the person who started a alternative Brahman journal. It was called the American Brahman Review. It came out at Houston 2010, and I was the person who was the front man, but there was about three to four other people behind the scenes who were, pushing it and financially supporting it. And it started around January with kind of the, I guess, thought that there needed to be another Brahmin publication. In full honesty, it was because the supporters behind it felt like the Brahman Journal publicized everyone, including international breeders and stuff, and they felt like the Brahman Journal should only advertise certain American genetics. And so I was young, I was skilled in this area, and I became the publisher.
Yeah. And you did a great job.
It was a sneak attack. It was a carefully planned sneak attack that only a few people were asked to be in it. And, we came out with this magazine at Houston, and it was like you said, you got it and you were like, what?
Yeah, it was it really threw me for a loop, and it was a very difficult period of time. And I knew that there were people that weren't happy, that I truly believe that there is no small breeder. Everybody matters in our Brahmin family. Doesn't matter if they have one cow, doesn't matter if they have a bazillion, doesn't matter if they live in Thailand or Tyler, Texas. Does not matter. We want to give everyone a voice and cheer them on, because at the end of the day, everything stems from American Brahmin. And so in 2010, again, that was that same year, that was kind of, Facebook was getting stronger. And so I would travel internationally and be at events, and I would get people complaining about the fact that I had these shows in there, and that I was reporting and I was putting up photos of the champions, and doing a much geared down of what we do now, just simply because I did it 100% by myself. I would go to the events, I would take the photos, I would post them on Facebook, I would put in everything. But what I kept pointing out was, I'm putting in the sire and the dam, and they all come back to American genetics. So at the end of the day, those American genetics are very, very important around the globe. We are the birthplace. And so, but they didn't get that. And so, back to what you were saying, I think it made a lot of people really unhappy that I gave a voice to everybody.
Well, it was such a like toxic is the word, but toxic situation having two of these magazines because I don't know if you remember, but our strategy was pretty much to undercut your pricing. And it's hard to like talk about this because I'm the bad person in this story, but like so our total strategy was to undercut your
Wait,
pricing.
I'm going to stop you right there. You were not the bad person in this story. You were the young person that was told you were doing something for the better good, and eventually you figured out. And so now you can continue on. But you were just you were the one that was the face, but you weren't necessarily, and I knew this, you weren't necessarily the one that was behind the scenes. So please continue.
So we had our ads, they were like $500 or maybe $400, I can't remember. It was super cheap. But what I found though is it really made a burden for breeders because, the Brahmin review was good. It had good information, it was well designed, and people did want to be in it, but the Brahmin Journal was always number 1. So it was like they would still keep their ad in the Brahmin Journal because it was the official publication, and then they would put an ad in our publication too because it was kind of the new thing and they wanted to be in it. But it really essentially doubled all of our breeders' advertising cost, and that's not sustainable. It wasn't sustainable for either of our customers.
No. And also the magazine, you did a phenomenal job, but I was running a business that had to pay the bills and pay for everybody. And so I am limited to how much editorial I can have in the magazine by how many ads I have. And I actually would call some of the people that had ads in the Brahmin review, and I'm like, "Look, you have a completely different ad. You have a different ad style. You've told me for years that you don't put bulls on your ads, or you don't do this." And they're like, "Hey, this ad's free. Like, I'm not even paying for this thing." And I'm like, "Ooh, okay." So my strategy was, not to talk bad about the Brahman Review, not to talk bad about you, but to just work really hard and continue doing what I do and continue traveling and doing the best I could. When some information would get sent to you, and I knew it was getting sent to you because I would see it in your magazine, and I had been asking for the same information, and I did, and this is from like the board. The board would give you access to information, and then I had been absolutely asking for that, and I wouldn't get it. And I knew that my magazine had to been going to press after yours. That was hard, but I think it made me a better, it made me try harder and work harder, and maybe gave me some ideas to do some things better.
Well, I was on the board at that time, which again, I hope I'm not putting myself in liability for a lawsuit, but that was crap. Like, for lack of a better word, that was crap. There, I should not have been allowed to have been. I was on the executive board.
And you ran the website for the association.
Yes, and there were so many conflicts of interest that were just flat out wrong, and I don't even know why it was allowed. It should not have been allowed, but yes, I would have information because I was sitting in the board meeting because I was a director, which the board meetings are public. Anybody can go to them, but it was very messed up.
Yeah, it was really, really difficult. And then, so I don't, here's what I don't think some people realize, and I don't even know if you knew this. So when I bought the magazine in 2002, Joe told me there were certain things that I had to do. And because, he was transferring the caretaker position. That's what I like to think of it as. The magazine, you will go anywhere in the world. If they have Brahman cattle, they have Brahman Journal magazines in their office, and they are like gold to them internationally. People still call me and buy the old magazines. I have every single magazine. I have a storeroom full of all the old ones. And I have people call me from South Africa or South America or whatever. Hey, I want to get my granddad 10 years worth from the 80s, or, whatever. I need to fill in his library of Brahman journals. And so, I have all these magazines. So Joe told me it's very important. You are the official publication, not only of the Brahman breed, but of the American Brahman Breeders Association. For that responsibility, you have to mail internationally the magazine to any person that requests it for free. So from 1971 until I purchased the magazine in 2002, and then on, that was done. And the reason why is because the American Brahman Breeders Association could not afford to get all throughout the world about the American Brahman cattle. So they looked to the magazine for, we need this magazine to go worldwide. They aren't going to pay for it because of, cost of mailing and everything. So that's why my postal permit is a requester permit at the time, where people could request the magazine, and I had to send it internationally for free. I spent thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, as you can imagine, in the mailing of all of these magazines to all of these countries for free. Now, it went slow boat. So a lot of people would say, I want it faster, or I want it guaranteed, or whatever. And so they would pay for the subscription. But I was sending this magazine internationally for years, until there was a meeting. I still remember it, at the heart of Texas in October. It was the national show. And I think it was maybe 2011, when the board came out and said, in the executive board, they came out and said, we think that there are currently two magazines, and we think that you as breeders should be able to use whichever magazine you want. And everyone goes, yeah, of course, we are. And they say, okay, so we're just going to take a vote on it. All in favor say aye. And they're like, yeah, sure, okay, aye. They had no idea that what they just said yes to was to remove our status, the Brahman Journals, as the American Brahman Breeders Association official publication. And I got a letter from a lawyer not long after that saying, cease and desist. You can no longer even talk to the ABBA staff. you cannot print anything unless it's on the website. And I'm like, dang, Rachel runs the website. I'm in big trouble. So, and then that basically released me where I felt like financially I couldn't afford to keep mailing magazines for free to all these international people. They all ended up buying, subscriptions and that sort of thing. But that's why I think this magazine, there's sometimes people go, well, anybody can say they're the official publication. This magazine has earned it, has deserved it, not from me, but from all the breeders and all the people that look at this magazine for all those years and look back and can go find the bulls and the females, and they can see all of this really important data. The magazine is its own entity. I just, like I said, I'm a caretaker, but it has earned that status.
Mhm. Yeah. I want to, again, I know we have talked about this many times, but again, I want to apologize because that was very wrong and it was really wrong. And I'm embarrassed that I was part of.
I can remember when we started talking again, you came up to me. I can still remember I was getting in my car. You walked up to me at the kickoff classic when it was still at Washington County Fairgrounds, and we were up in that top parking lot. And the words you said were, I had no idea how important the magazine is to the entire breed and to people around the globe. And you said you were sorry, and I said, absolutely, thank you for that. It meant a lot to me for you to say that. Yeah, you made me probably a little bit better as far as someone to run the magazine, and so thank you for pushing me.
We made each other better. And I think we continue to make each other better, but now as allies.
Yes, exactly. It's a lot more fun, isn't it?
So the Brahmin review probably lasted maybe 2 years. Well, it lasted with me as the leader for 2 years, and I had to give up, honestly. And it's hard, like as a competitive person, like to admit that you've been bested by someone, but I had to give up because our advertisers or the people who were kind of writing with us, they constantly were asking me, where are you shipping boxes to, and what international shows are you going to, and are you going to be at this show in Mexico? And my answer was like, no, I'm not. I can't do that. I just basically couldn't compete. You outworked us and outcovered us. But I love that though, because that's the American way. Like, let the better person win, let the hardest worker win, let the marketplace determine who is the better magazine. And you did.
Brahman beef is the next big thing in the meat industry. Known for its great flavor along with heart-healthy benefits, Brahman beef is taking the country by storm. Brahman Country Beef features great-tasting, heart-healthy beef raised by BRC Ranch. We ship nationwide, with everything from premium steaks to briskets, ground beef, and even hard-to-find cuts like tri-tip, picanha, oxtails, and the elusive Brahman Hump. Visit BrahmanCountryBeef.com and start your order today.
I like to say I'm the last magazine standing. And I also like to tell people I am not afraid of competition. And that's what I was saying all along through this whole process is I'm not afraid of competition. The problem was it was unfair competition to some extent because of what we just discussed. But I am not afraid of competition. And Rachel, I do have to say that I tell people if Rachel Cutrer could not take me down, I'm not thinking you can, but give it your best whirl because she was one very difficult competitor. So,
I think I can't remember exactly, but I might have been the communications chairman or a BA. Like, it's just terrible.
yeah. And then I was on the communications committee and I got removed off the communications committee. And I was told not to talk to anybody in the AVBA. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be tricky. This is going to be hard to get information. But we made it happen. And, when I went to, for example, Panama, I think in Panama, maybe it was a little bit of a realization too, because you hadn't traveled that much internationally. And you were at the World Brahman Congress in Panama in 2012. And I had been going down there for 2 years. I was very involved in helping Pedro Vallarino with the scheduling, and he did a wonderful job putting on a great Congress. Not saying that I had much to do with it, but we would meet every month pretty much, because I would be in Colombia or here or there, and he would say, we're thinking about doing this, and I'm like, oh, the Americans would love that, but maybe you should do the schedule this way because the women would like to do some, whatever. And so we got very involved in that. And so when I was there at the World Brahmin Congress in 2012, I had probably maybe over 1,000 pounds of magazines. And because you've traveled internationally, but some people who haven't, I could have 1,000 pounds of magazines at an event and they could be gone in 10 minutes, because people love the magazine, but they love the magazine because they love the cattle and they love what you as a breeder produces. And so that's, at the end of the day, it's not about me or anything. It's about the breeders and what you guys produce, and how people are so, they really need to see that. I need to see that photo of that bull. I need to see that progeny. So,
Well, it kind of lends me to the topic I want to talk about is like print versus digital, and the need for both maybe. But, also around that time, I need to look up when Facebook was invented, but it was sort of around this time. I don't think we had a Facebook page for the Brahmin Review, but really that era is when y'all just skyrocketed with a digital presence. But you still maintain the print presence, which both is important because people want to see the scrolling, fleeting, instant news, but they also want to pull that magazine off their shelf from 20 years ago and look up, a show. So you got to have both. But I mean, just maybe talk about your thoughts on that and what pushed y'all into putting such a strong digital focus.
I have people that have been on my team, and I like to say that we're a team. And I'm really proud of the fact that, like, for example, Mandy Chambers McDermott was basically her first job out of college, was with us for 17, 18 years, and retired at a very young age because she has wanted to make sure she had enough time for her two little ones. And so she has two little ones, and I'm like, you're not retired, you're still part of the family. Someday you'll be back when they're back in school and stuff. So, and then Emily Otto, I think she worked at Office Depot and had gotten out of school, and she's just brilliant. She's a journalist, she's writes, she's really, really good. And so she has been with us a really long time, and she's now taking back and stepping back in to do the, I guess you would call it, assistant editor's job. But really, I'm like, here you go. I'm going to focus more over here. But Facebook started in 2004 actually, but we really didn't start like tuning in on it until about probably 2009 or so. And I just thought that this was a cool way to do things. Now, here's what I find really interesting about the Brahman Journal and the magazine is that you need both. And actually, I think you'll appreciate this, Rachel, because I know what you do. A big part of your living is, helping people with marketing and websites and that sort of thing. So people are like, oh, websites are passe. No, they're not. I always tell people the having the ad in the magazine so people can see it, because they still like to have it in their hand. Having a website, because it's like a place to go. And then of course Facebook is like the mall. So like people are like walking through the mall, but like if you get distracted, it's like, oh, look over here. Oh, look over there. So you want to be able to, and I'm sure you tell your people that work with you, Facebook is great. But how many times have you been on Facebook and you go, oh, I saw X, Y, and Z. Let me go find that. And you can't find it again, because it was like fleeting. And I thought I saw it on this place or that place. Um, and so you need to have that website presence. So we have the Brahman Journal website, which, basically is the holding place for all of those magazines. So we sell a VIP lifetime membership to the magazine where you can go see every single magazine from 1971 to current, and they're searchable and you can flip through them and you can read them on an iPhone and or iPad. But people still want the hard copy. Then we have the Brahmin event website, which like has all of the Brahmin events that we can possibly gather up from all around the world, and it's free. Anybody can put their Brahmin event on that. So it's a calendar that people really like. Our social media, you'll get a kick out of this. So Jesus over at Rancho Chapapote, I'm a big fan of his, and he is the son of Jesus and the nephew of Enrique Sanchez, who they all are Rancho Chapapote and great breeders there in Mexico. And he's like, Vicky, you do know that the Brahman Journal, we call it the Brahman Wikipedia, because you can go search, you can go to the Brahman Journal Facebook page and you go in the search bar for that page and you can put in any private herd number and you can go and you can find all of that history. You can go see, you go put in JS Rouge and you'll find anything that had like JS Rouge in the name from 2010 on. So when I was told I wasn't going to be at a couple of events in November in 2024, my heart was broken because I thought that's going to break that history. And so that's why I felt like it was really important to be there. But like being able to go back and look and see Jeff Smith and who's gone, John Good, see all those photos of them at shows and their genetics that they've impacted the entire world with. That to me is really important. And so that's one of the reasons why we work so hard at the different events to put up first in class, second in class photos. I'm in Mexico and I can say JDH Lady Pink, that is the dam, one of the top dams there at Rancho Chapapote. And I have a photo of Porfirio on the stick in 20, I think 15, when he was first in class, number 3 at Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, because I was able to be there, take that photo, not only take the photo, but have it archived and have it with the right information so we know exactly who it is.
Yes. I mean, just putting the photos on Facebook is such a tremendous resource for anybody because like you said, you can search it and you can pretty much find any photo that you're looking for. You can find multiple photos of animals throughout their life, like see them at different points of their, age development and things like that. And it's such a resource.
I use it all the time. And I always tell people that if you go and you bump into a live stream when you put in someone's name, that means that because we work really hard to do what we do, is that in the comments, we've put every first and second into the comments from all of those big events. So if you're scrolling through and you go, oh, look, there's the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo live stream, it's because that animal had something, it was commented about in there in that event.
Well, another thing that I use all the time is the VIP breeder or the VIP magazines online because again, I'm a super fact checker and I think we're in this era of like it's alternative facts, I would call it, where I saw this after the World Brahmin Congress. Honestly, I saw someone who posted that they were the champion. Well, I'm not going to be specific, but they said that they had won an award at the World Brahmin Congress, which they in fact did not. And I'm like, wait, you just can't make up that like you won stuff, especially important stuff. And see that all the time. Like I'll see people, and I hate to call people out, but they might say like, past national champion, blah, blah, blah. Or if I think that's wrong, I'm going to go verify it. And I'm going to go to the VIP Brahman Journal and look up that year and look up the results. And a lot of times maybe they were like a reserve division champion or something, which is still impressive, but they were not like the national champion.
We try really hard to say like, division champion or something along those lines, and that's why we use the words grand champion also, so that we can make sure that people understand that. And there is a difference, yeah. And so now we have class champions, reserve class champions. I mean, so
When we were working on setting up the Brahman Museum, which I have a lot of the Brahman journals there in the library there, but I was trying to make some list of, like all previous locations of the All-American or things like that. And literally the only way to find that is through the Brahman Journal, because surprisingly, like the association they have some gaps in places. And the one place that you can count on to find like verifiable facts to build histories and timelines and things like that is the Brahman Journal. And maybe people don't know that you can go online and look at those, from beginning of time to present.
We have a coupon right now. It's $150 and it's lifetime. You get all of the new magazines and everything from the old ones, which is just so much fun to look at and stuff. But like the other thing is like I just sat here and I just put in Noble. I don't know why. I just like that bull. But I just put in Noble and I'm sitting here looking at the photo from Colombia that we were just at in 2024, and Noble was the sire of the reserve grand champion bull from Colombia. And so to me, I think that's really cool because if I wasn't there, you might have found out. Also Noble was the Get a Sire champion too there. And so, a lot of really cool stuff that, you would not necessarily know if we weren't there. And so when we can't be at events, it just breaks my heart. Now, Columbia, we hadn't been at for a while because of what with COVID. And then there was a lot of conflicts from when they had their national show and that sort of thing. But it's so cool to be able to look back and go, I got photos of Noble's offspring from for so many years. I mean, and to be able to look back and go, they all look the same. This is what's important to breeders and stuff, and see that, for example, the female that produced that reserve grand champion with Noble at Columbia. I'm looking at a photo of her from 2018 when I was at the national show in Bucaramanga, Colombia. And so I'm looking at that, and that is some really cool stuff. So that's her. And then she comes back, and we can find photos of her other offspring. So again, I think history is really, really important, and it matters. And accuracy, like you said.
Yes, yes. One of the things that is so impressive about you is your international coverage. Do you have any idea how many like countries you visited, or how many days of the year you're on the road or anything like that? Not on the road here in the USA, but like all over the world.
Yeah, no, I'm out of the country probably a couple times a month for the most part. And I've been pretty much everywhere in Mexico, Central America, and most of the countries in South America that have Brahman cattle. Brazil, I don't go too much because they're so Nellore centric. They don't have a big Brahmin population, but pretty much been everywhere. And you know what I always find now that we're doing the live stream, which is completely different than when I first started doing all of our stuff on Facebook back in like 2010 and 2011, and I look back at those photos and everything from those years. It is just amazing to me how much we've changed. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've learned so much. Like, it helps to have someone be posting all this stuff instead of it just being me. But I travel a lot, and so we do a lot in Mexico. For example, in New Mexico, it looks like for the next 2 years, we're going to be doing all of their major events, including the World Cebu Congress, which is called Com Cebu, which will be in October in Veracruz. And then they're also going to be doing the World Brahman Congress in 2026. So we're going to be covering all of their majors for the next 2 years. Colombia, we're supposed to be doing all of their national show and maybe some of their other major events. Ecuador, Nicaragua. I leave for Honduras here in about 2, 3 weeks. Right after Fort Worth, I'm going to be in Honduras, and they're going to have an ABBA conference that we're going to be live streaming. So now that we do the live streaming, even when we didn't, the breeders would come up to me and they'd go, I don't understand this. All these people are texting me and telling me congratulations, especially now that we do the live stream because they get to see them walking and everything. And they go, they love my cow. And my cow was third. But how did they see it? And I'm like, you're welcome. Just thank the Brahman Journal team because we make sure everybody gets to see everything. So it's not just about the champions. People that are third at Houston or fourth or fifth, I'll get people messaging me going, I saw that animal. I think it was like fifth. And I'm like, okay. And I'll scrub back and I'll go, is it this one? And they go, yeah, it's that one. I really want to get a hold of the breeder. How do I reach them? And I just say, okay, this person doesn't speak any Spanish. Let me get, Iran or one of the people on the team who speak Spanish to help you. Or yes, this person speaks Spanish that you're interested in. Here's their contact information. So again, I just like putting people together in the Brahmin world.
I love that you said it's not just about the champions, because that is a mindset that I have also, I guess, changed on in the last, as I've gotten older, because when I was younger, it was just about the champions. That was like ingrained into me, like as if, if you are not winning a show, you're nothing, but thanks to social media, and I think, think people like you, people have become more educated, and they know what they like. They know what they like in their own programs, and they're not just blindly using animals because it won some title. So they may see an animal that was lower in class or maybe third in class or whatever, but they know that that's the type they like and they're looking for, and they seek it out. Like, and I think that's great, because like at Houston this year, we do a lot of international shipments, but I was pleasantly surprised that international breeders are buying from everyone in the USA. They're not just buying from, the top 3 ranches or the top 5 ranches. If they see an animal they like, they buy it, whether or not, no matter where it placed in the class, And I think that's great, because these shows are very, what's the word I'm looking for? Fickle. I mean, it's one person's opinion on one day, so
Well, just like you saw just recently, two different judges back to back shows. And we see this. I mean, just look at the World Brahman Congress and the National Show. Two different judges, basically back to back shows. The cattle didn't really change. And, it's an opinion because that I mean, it's not a performance class. It's not like a barrel race or something like that. It is an opinion, and that is that person's opinion. You have to have respect for it, and that's what they like. But that doesn't mean that the other person's opinion was wrong. And I mean, I think a perfect example, again, going back to the JDH Lady Pink, she was class number 3 winner in 2017, and she was owned by JD Hudgens and was bred by Bubba. And so Steve, she had the little H on her shoulder, and she went to Mexico. She wasn't a champion. She won that class. That was it. And I have that photo of her, but I know she won that class, but she wasn't a champion. But then Rancho Chapapote saw her, liked her, and she has produced so many of their champions and their national champions and their herd bulls back into, that they use. She's the dam of the Berlin bull. She's the dam of so many of their really great cattle. But now with social media and with what we do, what I'm finding is people come up to me and go, everybody knows me because, I'm one of your sponsors and they hear my name all the time. And I'm like, that's my job. But now I see where I used to travel and I would see pretty much the same type of genetics across. I think I'm helping. I'm not the reason, but I can help open up that world. So I go to Nicaragua and I see, genetics from Mexico that are there and from other countries and I'm like, oh, that's so cool. And I get to talk about it. Of course, we're really excited about all the BRC genetics that we're seeing internationally, that of course you haven't been BRC for that long. And so that's a big testament to what you do. And then, of course, we're seeing those heritage genetics and, all these great genetics that they can all be used because you need to mix and match things to get better animals.
I agree. I agree. Kind of wrapping up, what are you most looking forward to, like in the upcoming year or years with, the Brahman Journal?
I love doing all of the different parts of it. So we're actually getting ready to roll out a Brahmin store where smaller breeders can go ahead and put in their genetics, their frozen genetics, and they can have their own little place, and we'll help market that so somebody can buy maybe embryos or semen or whatever. Because I get asked that a lot because of course we have the auction site Best Cattle Sales too. So we're rolling that out. We're going to continue doing our live streaming. I'm really excited. learned a lot of stuff at the national show and the World Brahmin Congress, what people liked. We're going to be able to do a lot more interviews during the event, but have it so that those people can have those interviews as standalones later on, so that when they come back to me and go, hey, I want that, I'm not like, oh, it was part of the live stream. You're going to have part of the live stream part of it. And we've actually doing a lot of stuff in Mexico. We've gotten to the point where I can go a mile away with my microphone and still be able to talk to people from yeah, I can. I mean, it's crazy the equipment we've gotten. And then we also can throw our live stream onto big screens. So we did that in Guatemala. We're going to be doing more of that in Mexico, so that whoever is a sponsor of ours will also be able to be seen on the big screen at the events. Just being more mobile to where we can be further away from the big screen, where we can be further away from the sound system. Just a lot of different things that we're doing, and we're going to be in Panama, Nicaragua, Honduras. We're talking to the people in Dominican Republic, because everybody wants the world to see their cattle, and I really love that we're kind of the hub for that, and that we can let people see, and then they can decide what they like, what they don't like. And we try to just be a promoter of everybody. Doesn't matter if you advertise, doesn't matter if you're a sponsor. When you win, I am so excited to see anybody, because I know how hard it is. So I'm excited because I love our Brahmin world and I love our family. And I think that we are, for the most part, a family that really needs to pull together. I love the fact that there's Brahmin USA, you know, and that a group of people are getting together to just be positive about Brahmins and just trying to help breeders around the world and in the United States. So I think there's a lot of groups that can do a lot of positive.
Well, that's what we want to focus on is just like this podcast, positive things and honest stories and transparency, and let people get to know all the great people of this breed.
And get to know and meet them and put people together. I introduced Enrique Sanchez of Rancho Chapapote with Jose Luis Valdez of Siguacan. I did not know they did not know each other. And a couple of years ago, they were at a show, and I'm like, oh, and I thought for sure they knew each other. I sat there and listened to them talk for almost an hour. And finally, I got pulled away because my team was hungry. It was the most fun. And now they're really good friends and they visit each other ranches. That's what it's about.
That is what it's about. That's amazing. It's kind of wrapping up, tying a bow on a few things. I was going to ask you, is there anything we didn't talk about that we want to add? And then if not, we have a final question that we ask everybody. But I think I know what the answer is going to be. But did we miss anything?
I don't think we did. I think we covered a lot of things. I can talk forever about Brahman cattle and how much I love what I do, and that it's not about the money. It's just about the people and, putting people together and being successful. That's what I love to see. And I know you feel the same way. It's really about helping people accomplish their goals.
So we like to ask everybody in closing, what is their favorite Brahmin of all time? And I wasn't sure if I should ask you this or not, because I know you have to be very neutral and you can't like promote a certain animal over other, but I think I know a story that might be your answer.
Okay, tell me the little story.
Maybe a gift that someone gave you?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I didn't even think about that one. Yeah, I got a birthday gift that was a surprise, and it was a female and cow. It was a cow. I'm like, I don't own any Brahman cattle because I promote Brahman cattle. And so, yes, Rancho Chapapote gave me a little gift, a big gift, and on my birthday, and I just was floored. And she's had some babies, and she lives at Enrique's ranch in Rancho Chapapote. I have a ranch in Mexico, but I didn't want to take her there because I was like, my husband's Brahmins are just low class Brahmins. They're just regular Brahmins. And this female is like super fancy. And so she doesn't need to go, to the ranch where like these other cows might beat her up. I was like, we're going to have to take good care of this cow. So anyway, so they still have her. But Enrique told me a funny story. He had grand champion and reserve grand champion bull at that national show. And he goes, Vicky, we have a problem. I'm like, what? He goes, people came down my aisleway No one wanted to see my bulls. They only wanted to see Gladys, your cow. And I'm like, oh, good to know. So Gladys the cow is pretty famous, and I think they've fleshed her some, and they have some of her genetics. So yeah. But as far as bulls go, I love new trends. Like when I saw Captain Offspring, and I saw those first ones, and I'm like, that is going to be a really cool bull that'll be breeding a lot and doing a lot of good things. So and 1/7, the Red Bull, I'm like, ooh, look at those. So you see those animals, or you see something that just is getting started and is different and brings a lot to the table, because you can still match the old with the new. So you can still have those older genetics that are frozen in the tank that are back from even the 70s. And then we bring them back out. So it's just fun.
I do. Again, we could keep going, but you mentioned Captain, and I do just want to throw out there, like, Captain's debut was the centerfold of the Brahman Journal, and that was very strategic on our part, because Captain was like an unknown bull that was just in a pasture. And when we bought him, and we were like, this bull is amazing from a visual, like, confirmation. And we asked ourselves, like, what's the best way to let everybody in the Brahmin world find out about this bull? And it was the Brahman Journal, so we talked with you, we got the centerfold, remember? And when we timed everything, the entire launch of that bull promotion was timed around when that magazine was going to come out, and when people would see it in the centerfold, and having our online store open at that time. But that was our entire strategy for introducing Captain, was through the Brahman Journal.
That is a very cool story. I just remember seeing some of his offspring at the Kickoff Classic, young, in the calf division, is when I first started, like, really kind of triggering in. There was a bunch of them, and I'm like, and I said, and it's on the live stream. You can go back probably and find it, because every single live stream we've ever done is still on our Facebook page as well as on our YouTube channel, and you can scrub through them. So yes, we see you in the beautiful pink dress in Nicaragua judging, and you are I'm just going to say, one of my fave judges. Love being in the arena with you, and love the way you sort your cattle and the way you judge. Really, really great judge, guys. You need to go watch her if you can. She doesn't do it domestically, but she does do it internationally, and it's very impressive. But I saw those captains, and I'm like, I'll bet you he's going to be the next big thing. And every time we see Captain now, Iran and I talk about, I said, and who said Captain was going to be famous? And Iran's like, yeah, you did. I'm like, okay, I feel good now. So.
Well, this has been a wonderful podcast, and I think people are going to love it. But I just want to officially wrap up with, like, a big, sincere thank you. And I know that you don't do it for the recognition or the accolades, but your heart of service and helping every Brahmin breeder is, probably the, like, truest, sincerest person that I know, is that you just want good things for everybody, and you want to help everybody. And I speak for the whole breed when I say we love you and we thank you for everything that you do.
Well, I absolutely love the breed, and I love all the people, and have great respect for you and what you're doing and what you have done. And so I think we can finish up by just saying we just love our Brahmin family, and we're just really fortunate.
Yes, we do. Well, thank you again, Vicki. Thank you for sharing your time with us. And everybody, we hope you enjoyed this episode of Over the Hump.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Over the Hump podcast. Our passion is Brahman cattle, and it runs deep. And this show is about its rich history, industry trends, and stories that define the American Brahmin. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, find us on Instagram and Facebook at Br Cutrer. See you next time on the Over the Hump podcast.